In this chapter, we're going to look at ways to associate CSS with xhtml, basically to bring a style sheet together with a document. In order to do that, it behooves us to spend just a little bit of time at first discussing xhtml terminology, just so that everyone's on the same page in terms of what we're going to be talking about. Now, you might wonder why we're wasting our time talking about the nitty-gritty of xhtml when this is supposed to be about CSS. And the truth is that you really do need to have at least some familiarity with xhtml in order to be a good CSS author. So what we just want to do is review a few terms. The first one is element. An element is basically an atomic piece of a document. It's one of the basic structures of a given XHTML document. So div, the P element for paragraph, H1, H2, H3, all these, IMG, these are all elements. And every element is begun and end with a start tag and an end tag, respectively. So div is the element. The first of the div tags is the start tag, and then the /div is how you indicate an end tag for that particular element. Now, elements, at least most elements in XHTML, can contain content, such as this div, which has a little bit of text in it called "this is content." Elements like this are called non-replaced elements because they're not replaced by anything else. They contain the content that they're going to display. An image element, IMG, which you can see down there, is what's known as a replaced element. In other words, this is an element that points to some other resource that will replace it when the document is rendered. The image will be brought in and placed inside the document. And so IMG is a replaced element, and div, P, H1, H2, and so on, those are non-replaced elements. Now, elements can have what are known as attributes, and they can have multiple attributes. This div has an attribute of class. It has a class attribute. An attribute simply describes some aspect of the element, and every attribute has a value. In this case, we have a class of lead, so the value for the class attribute is lead. And as you can see, in the case of the image, there's actually not only the element, but we have two attributes, each of which has its own value. If you have an attribute, it must have a value, even if it's an empty value, as is the case with this alt attribute. Its value is basically empty, so alt equals quote quote means, okay, we have the attribute of alt, but its value is just simply nothing. But you can't just say alt and leave off the equals quote quote. That's not valid XHTML. So the value of the src attribute is pic.jpg, which in this case means that that's the image that the browser is going to go grab and put into the document. So that's the basics of XHTML terminology. I'll refer to elements quite a bit throughout the rest of the videos, not just in this chapter, but throughout the chapters, because styling elements is one of the most common things that you do in CSS. But attributes come into play too, particularly the class attribute, so I'll also probably mention attributes from time to time. And now you know where they come from. If you're unfamiliar with XHTML, then you might want to check out the Learning XHTML tutorial found elsewhere on lynda.com. That will help get you up to speed if you don't feel that you're quite there with XHTML.